My husband, 31, comes from a big family. His parents immigrated from Mexico, which is important because part of this event takes place in Mexico. When his older two siblings, a sister who we'll call Betty is now 40, and a brother who we'll call Sam is now 41, were in elementary school. Sam met his now wife, who we'll call Lexi, when they were in high school. Lexi didn't have a good relationship with her parents, so she moved out of their house and in with Sam and his family. During which time, mother-in-law, 59, made her life hell. Mental A, all sorts of gaslighting. Only ever spoke in Spanish. Tried to convince her that Sam didn't love her and that he wanted her to leave and not come back. It affected her mental health so much that she was having thoughts. Once she and Sam had enough money, they moved out of the in-laws' house and soon after decided to get married. They were both 19 at this point. Mother-in-law seemed to finally accept the fact that Lexi wasn't going anywhere and that her son loved her. So she offered to help plan the wedding to have in Mexico. Lexi didn't want to get married in Mexico because all of her friends and family are in the U.S., but mother-in-law insisted that planning and paying for the wedding was her way of apologizing and welcoming her into the family. So Lexi agreed. Once they arrived in Mexico, mother-in-law kept Sam busy with whatever tasks she could find and told Lexi that she would take care of everything and that she should go to the hotel with some of the cousins and family friends and relax. At first, it was male and female cousins and family friends that were hanging out, but eventually, most of the females left. They were drinking and having a good time, and Lexi thought nothing of it because they were family. But she started to notice she was drunker than she should be for how few drinks she had, so she stopped drinking. One of the male cousins kept trying to get her to drink more, but she told him that she was going to go back to her hotel room. He offered to walk her there. She agreed. The next thing she remembers is being shoved into a car and her clothes being torn off and being AR'd. She blacked out and woke up by being dragged out of the car towards someone's front door. She remembers the conversation between the cousin and whoever's front door she was being forced into. The cousin was trying to sell her to the man at the door, who luckily refused. The cousin put her back in the car, and as soon as she had the chance, she jumped out of the car and ran to the U.S. Embassy. She reported the whole thing, and the cousin arrested and confessed that mother-in-law paid him for the whole thing. I don't know what charges mother-in-law faced, if any at all. Jump forward to 2009. Husband and I met when he moved to my state for college. His family still live in his state, so I didn't meet his mother until we had already been together for almost 3 years. From the very second I met her, there was something about her that made me extremely anxious. I couldn't explain it. Luckily, we live 3 states away and have very rarely had the time or money to visit often. But still, all throughout the relationship, there has been something about his mom that has made him dismissive and absent from me. For example, she called while we were watching a movie. He answered and ended up spending 3 hours on the phone with her. Movie night was over and I went to bed before he was even close to done talking to her. Another example. We were camping with a group of friends and were going to four-wheeling and hiking, and then his mom called. We missed the ride because he wouldn't get off the phone. Things like that have always been present in our relationship. I've asked him so many times not to answer. Just text her that you're doing something and that you'll call her back later. He did sometimes, but more often than not, he would be sulky about it, and what we're doing stopped being fun. This got better over time, but it's still an issue after 13 years together. Husband and I got married in 2017, after already having been together for just under 9 years. Most of his family showed up about an hour late, but his mother and dad showed up almost 2 hours late. We had to pay several hundreds of dollars extra for the venue. When his mom showed up in off-white dress slacks and a lacy blouse, I just about caught off the entire thing. But I love him, so I just dealt with it. We've been happily married for 4 years with his mother 3 states away. This woman posted about 20 pictures of my wedding on Facebook before I had a chance to post even one. We had a honeymoon baby and have tried to involve his parents and siblings as much as we can. We've sent them pictures and made video calls and stuff like that. But again, she posted all the pictures we sent on Facebook. Before sending pictures, we made it clear that no one was to put any of them anywhere online. She did it anyway. Husband talked to her and she stopped for a while, but then would start posting pictures again, over and over. It finally got to the point where we stopped sending pictures. And then she would call him incessantly. When he didn't answer, she would message me asking why her son wasn't answering her calls. I told her that he was a boy and he would call her back when he could, but still wanting to keep the peace, I would let her know I would remind him to call her. She always, and I mean always, called him her son when she's talking to me. Never calls him by his name. But when she's talking about him with others, she does use his name. They talk in Spanish when I'm around. They don't realize how much Spanish I understand. I can't speak it well enough to hold a conversation, but I can understand enough to know what they are saying about me. But none of this really matters all that much because we live 3 states away. Husband's little brother got married 2 days after Thanksgiving, so we made the trip to his home state for the wedding. While there, I got some time to bond with Lexi. She told me so many things about mother-in-law that my head was spinning. She told me that before husband and I got married, she told husband to have a real conversation about who his mom is, how overbearing, manipulative, and possessive she is. So many things I should have known about her. He never had that conversation with me. But Lexi also told me things that my husband didn't know, starting with mother-in-law arranging for Lexi to be AR'd and sold in Mexico. There are so many other horrible things that mother-in-law did or said, but this is by far the worst. And through the entire conversation, Lexi only referred to Sam as her husband. It reminded me of how mother-in-law only ever called my husband her son when talking to me. When I asked Lexi about it, she said mother-in-law did the same with Sam. So anytime Lexi spoke to mother-in-law, she called Sam my husband. I wasn't going to tell my husband about all of this until we go home from our trip to his home state. But as soon as he started talking about taking our daughter to see his parents, I couldn't hold it in. So I dropped this massive, earth-shattering bomb on him. He was understandably crushed and confused, but agreed he didn't want to bring our daughter to see them. We left the next morning. Up until today, we hadn't really talked about any of it. Being 3 states away had kind of muted the feelings of it all. But yesterday was his mom's birthday. Scrolling through Facebook today, I saw that mother-in-law had posted screenshots of a video call with my husband and daughter in our car. They had gone to the store while I was making dinner. He snuck out of the house to make that video call because he knew how I would have felt about it. He snuck our daughter out with him because he knows there was no way in hell I would be okay with our daughter being exposed to the kind of monster that mother-in-law is. When I asked him about it, he acted surprised that I was upset. Now is the point where I lost it. I told him that of course I was upset about it, that his mother had arranged for Lexi to be AR'd and sold. How could he not be upset about it? How could he be okay with exposing our daughter to that kind of person? And that could have been me. I reminded him that mother-in-law had made it very clear how she felt about me when she showed up to our wedding 2 hours late and wearing white. That could have been me that she tried to sell. My husband just sat there completely emotionless. I couldn't stand it. So after saying all that and him not responding, I drew a line in the sand. Our daughter is that line. She will have no contact with mother-in-law. I told him that I don't care if he talks to his mother. He can talk to her all he wants. That's his business. I can't stop him. But if he ever brought our daughter over that line again, it's my business. Mother-in-law will not know our daughter, or me. She will not be involved in mine or our daughter's life. That is where the line is. Our daughter and I on one side. He can walk both sides of that line, but our daughter and I will always be firmly planted on this side. And the second he tries to take her over that line ever again, we're done. This all took place a couple hours ago, and we haven't really talked since. He is a good husband and a good father, but this is all too much. For both of us. I am worried this will be a marriage killer. I don't want it to be, but if it comes down to it, I will fight tooth and nail to protect my daughter from mother-in-law, even if it means divorce and a custody battle. I want to help deal with this, but I am not the right person to do it. I am too biased. He needs to talk to someone, a therapist, but I have no idea how to encourage him to go to therapy without my bias and anger coming out. I need advice on how to approach this, and how to not look at him and be disgusted with him for sneaking our daughter out of the house to video call his mother. And when I do, I have to make good on the threat that if he lets mother-in-law speak to our daughter again, we will leave. Someone please help me. I don't know what to say to him or how to handle this situation. I feel like this entire post is kind of disjointed and jumps all over the place, But how the duck do you tell a story like this without it feeling like a disjointed mess? How do you explain something so deeply disturbing? Can someone please give advice on how to talk to him about going to therapy? Your mother-in-law tried to have another woman and kidnapped, and you're worried about sounding like an angry bee. You should be angry. Every single person who knows that woman should be angry. If she really did this, and you all know, there is something seriously wrong with anyone who continues to associate with this woman. I don't care who she is. My recommendation is to talk to a divorce and child custody lawyer immediately to see what your options are for keeping your child away from that woman. One thing you have to consider is that unless you get the court to agree that your daughter cannot be in contact with mother-in-law, if you divorce, you will have zero say or control over your husband having her around his mother. He really should talk to his brother about this. Is his brother still in contact with his mother? They don't talk to his parents, only for things like the wedding we went to. Other than those types of events, sister-in-law and brother-in-law don't see them or talk to them. They don't let them watch their kids. Lexi suggested I have my husband call Sam, but he shuts down completely anytime his mom comes up in conversation. I think it's some kind of disassociation. Like, he hears and understands everything that he hears, but it's so different from how he's seen his mother. That part of his brain turns off and forgets everything he already knows. Like a coping mechanism, maybe. I don't know. But he shut down so completely, so fast, that even when I tell him to call his brother, I don't know that it actually reaches him. I think I will call Lexi and ask her to have Sam call him. I don't know how else to get them to talk, because I don't even think he hears me. I don't think he tunes me out on purpose, but I don't know for sure. Info about my boyfriend's ex. They were together for 3.5 years. They got engaged after 2.5 years. Shortly before their wedding, they found out she was pregnant. The night before their wedding. So real 11th hour stuff. She confessed she'd been cheating on him with a coworker for over 2 years, saying that as they were getting married in the morning, it's not like he could bail now. But she didn't want to enter a marriage while lying, and going on to admit that the last time she'd slept with this other guy was less than a week before the wedding. He called off the wedding the next morning. He got a paternity test as soon as the baby was born, and the baby was proved to be his. He got 50-50 custody of his son, who switches houses every week. His son turned 4 in December. He does not have a very good relationship with the mother because she insists he owes her money she put into their wedding, but also wants to get back together with him. So they have this weird relationship where he's never sure if she'll yell at him or flirt with him, while he's attempting to be civil with her for the sake of his son. Boyfriend and I have been together over a year. His mother hates me because I am not ex. She believes that the parents of any child should stay together, no matter what, in order to give that child a stable and loving home. And even though boyfriend and ex were apart for 3 years before we met, she views me as a homewrecker. She's made numerous comments that suggested all of these things and outright said the homewrecker bit. But she'd always said it when boyfriend couldn't hear. I recently told boyfriend everything and asked if I could just not go to things that involved his mother. He agreed, and after his next visit with her, told me that before he said anything, she'd made some comment along the lines of, "Oh, wrong name, isn't here. Did you finally come to your senses?" He then said to never insult me ever again. Soon after that, she contacted me saying she has reflected on everything that happened and realized she messed up in several ways, and she wanted another chance to actually get to know me. Boyfriend and I agreed to meet her and father-in-law for dinner. We arrived, sat down, ordered. All was normal. Then, ex just happened to show up. Son was with a babysitter. Mother-in-law invited her to sit with us, snapped her fingers to get the waiter's attention. What the duck? And then added ex's food to our order. Ex then moved her chair from the head of the table to be on boyfriend's other side. Cue flirting. The more she tried, the more he focused on me, and I could see her and mother-in-law getting more and more upset. By the time the starter arrived, ex actually grabbed boyfriend's arm and he pulled away. Mother-in-law directly said, "Boyfriend, ex is trying to get your attention and you're ignoring her." He then ignored mother-in-law and asked me if I was ready to leave, which at that stage I really was, so we did. He wants to know what I want to do next. I have never been in this position before. I have 2 sets of parents. My birth parents just knows that I haven't spoken to in decades, And my adoptive parents, Just Yeses, who I love. I was removed from Just No's house, and the Just Yeses have always been respectful, and I've never really had to put in boundaries with them, as they have always waited for me to make a move. And I have no clue where to start, especially as mother-in-law is not one of my mothers. He said he needs to think about it himself, but he wants to know what my gut reaction is. However, my gut reaction is, I have no clue, because my mums wouldn't do this. Which is not what he wants to hear right now. I did check with a friend who is a barrister in training, and she says that grandparents' rights don't apply here. Any advice on what to say? She's decided you're a Holly homewrecker and aren't deserving of basic human decency or kindness. This was supposed to be her chance to make up for her bad behavior, and instead, she chose to double down. Honestly, I would never be in the same room with her again, and no child of mine would ever know she existed. Bravo for him! His mother is a toxic influence in his life, in his child's life, and in your relationship. She doesn't want anything to do with you, so there's no point you trying to get along with her. You and your boyfriend might want to read Patricia Evans's Victory Over Verbal Abuse to get some guidance on how to shut her down when she starts bothering you. Your boyfriend has a long and hard road to hoe. It starts with his mother, telling her that her attitude has undermined his respect for her and he's not going to tolerate it anymore. The same goes for his ex. He has to make it clear that her collusion with his mother makes him less able to view her as anything but a negative influence in his life. He should limit his interaction with her to only what is related to his son and look to an exchange process that minimizes contact with her and his mother.